Welcome back to a special edition of Idiots with Pipes. I'm Scott.
And I'm Jeremiah. You asked, we answered.
No. We asked. They answered. We listened.
And then we answered. What are you even talking about? Today's episode is a very special edition of footage that didn't quite make Tuesday's episode. It's not necessarily bad footage, but it's not necessarily good footage either. It's mostly just Scott rambling on about why he loves coffee for 15 minutes or so.
Which is why it's phenomenal footage. And that's why it's going to be called Phenomenal Footage Friday. The 3 F's. Phenomenal, Footage, and Friday.
None of which start with an F. Speaking of phenomenal, though, you asked once again, and we answered, how Scott makes the phenomenal cup of coffee, some would say perfect cup of coffee, using the Chemex method.
So in addition to that, we are also going to say how I got into coffee. After getting jealous of watching Jeremiah ramble on about his origin, I wanted to include mine, but it didn't quite make the cut.
I wonder why. So after you see the quick 1 or 2 minute part of how to make the coffee, feel free to log off.
Or stay tuned for the best part. So with that, we will bring you our first edition of what we will actually be calling Failed Footage Friday. Hope you enjoy.
A lot of the listeners, a lot of commenters, it's probably our biggest question. Is how do you make coffee in a Chemex? What is the process there? I mean, this is probably, I would say, 90 comments an episode.
Yeah, easily. Yeah,
Are we even getting that many comments? But yeah, they're asking, that question.
Yeah, we're getting hundreds of comments about it.
And I know you have a big history. I just got into Chemex because of you, like 7 months ago. And it is different.
It is.
But I know you have a story you told me about, an Italian chef from Missouri, Italy, or something like that.
Something like that, yeah. So, we, my grandparents, I grew up around coffee. My grandparents made coffee. They had, best part of waking up is still not Folgers in your cup. But they believed it. They were big Folgers people. And you say a lot with them. Spent a lot of time with my grandparents and showed me how to make coffee. And I got to the point where I would wake up just naturally at like 4:30 in the morning. They always woke up around 5. So I started waking up at 4:30. I could go downstairs, make their pot of coffee, have it brewed. So when they come down at 5 o'clock, coffee's already ready for them. And so I started trying to get into coffee. I love the smell of it. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to get into it. And so, I fill like 3/4 of my cup up with cream, fill the rest up with sugar and like a splash of coffee. Living the high life. I'm drinking coffee like a grown up. So, as I got older, started going through high school, got back into coffee, the cream to coffee ratio started to change. Coffee came up, cream going down. And wife and I went on one of our honeymoons. No, one of our honeymoons. We only had one honeymoon. One of our anniversary trips.
That's must be nice. 37 honeymoons.
When you live in the honeymoon period for so long, that's all considered a honeymoon. Yeah.
Your wife's never going to watch this episode.
Probably not, but okay. So we're on one of our anniversary trips. We're at a hotel, and they bring down a French press coffee.
Ooh,
yeah, right. Never had it before. And they use, of course, good quality beans. It was not Folgers. So we get in there, they bring us French press coffee. And they say, wait 5 minutes and push the little thing down, the plunger. Like, this is fancy. We're living the high life,
Yeah.
This is what sophisticated people do.
You're just sitting there in the quiet staring at the thing. Can we push it down?
That's pretty much why I was keeping clock and go, how about now? Like, I feel like a little kid. We're there yet? Okay, can I do it now? How about now? Can I push a button? Can I push a button? Can I push a button? And so we finally did push the plunger down, and it was up to that point the best cup of coffee I'd ever had.
Really?
Hands down. It was so good. Like, this is cool. So what do we immediately do? Get on Amazon, buy a French press. So get home, French press is waiting on me. Start using Folgers. still not good. It's not any better. Oh, this is so weird. The French press, the coffee is so good, but this Folgers using a French press is just not as good.
So it's supposed to be more to it than just
it's not
the
just
machine that makes the coffee.
So we started looking into it, found some different beans, start paying a little more for beans. We found, Javalia, I think it's Javalia, at like Publix, and it was like $8 a bag. Like, ooh, this is fancy. This crap's expensive.
$8.
Right? Looking back, go, that's only $8. So we got some, started getting whole beans, and then we started exploring different companies that had beans and stuff, and so started realizing that the beans are what really make the difference. And we started doing some research on good beans, so we start changing different companies, different types of beans. And so I got the French press thing perfected. I got everything down. We at a point where we're like measuring or scaling, all right, this much ratio of coffee to beans, and we're trying to get the water. We got a kettle, you boil it, you're supposed to boil it and let it sit for 7 minutes so the water comes down just enough, and we're getting all fancy with it. Or what I thought was fancy. So living at the French press, well, during COVID, I'm working on campus at the office, and one of my employees, we just started talking about coffee. And he used to work at a few different companies, some in Washington State, and then I think he went to Michigan or Missouri, I don't know, somewhere in the states up there, really far north.
Meerschaum?
Yeah, I think it was the state of Meerschaum. Yeah. And he said, well, have you ever heard of a Chemex? No. What is that? Like a coffee bean? What is it? He goes, no, it's a side speaker looking thing, which you guys saw in the intro video. And you put a filter in it, and you put the grinds in it, and you pour over. So it's technically a pour over coffee. Mm-hmm. You have a French press, which is kind of its own thing. Then you have pour over. So you pour it over. Chemex is one of the methods of pour over. And he said that this is going to be a different type of coffee. Huh? He goes, all right, tomorrow, bring your fancy French press coffee, and then I'll make you some Chemex, and I'll let you compare side by side. And so what he makes, he goes into this whole thing, because the Chemex, you got to weigh the beans, grind them, you put them all in there, then it's a ratio of water to coffee. Like I just filled it up to a certain line, but this is actually weighed out. And what you do is when you pour over about a 50-cent piece. And so you pour over in a circle slowly, because the goal is to not stop pouring. So you pour so slow, you don't have to stop, because otherwise it can overflow. But he pours in a little circle around. He said that the pouring in a circle, some people say like a swirl, you get further out and then further back in. That can make your coffee a little more oily.
Okay.
And so he said if you keep it in a circle, then it'll keep the coffee nice, clean, crisp. And I was like,
I heard it was something to do with stirring up all the particles.
I think that's what, I really
like washes them to the bottom, and so
yeah,
it's all filtering through that, I guess. What you're
sure, yeah. I'm sure there's a science reason.
My wife's into Chemex now, thanks to you.
So I'm glad to introduce you to the finer things of life.
Thank you. I appreciate
coffee.
That. Yeah.
But so we get there to campus, and he makes me this cup of coffee using a Chemex, and I take a sip of mine, French press, a sip of this one that I helped him make of Chemex. And I'm like, wow, this is very different, but I can't tell you how. The flavor's different. It just tastes. It's what's going on in my mouth is different, and I can't explain it in words. And he said, well, what it is because the French press only uses a little mesh filter you push down once, it makes the coffee thicker. And a lot of times you get that soot in the bottom of your cup. Mm-hmm. It's just a thicker coffee. So because of that, you taste it in your jaw. I looked at it and went, that is exactly what just happened, but I would have never put that in words, ever. I would have never figured that out.
Like almost like sour flavors kind of you taste in your jaw.
Just the way, he said it's something to do with the thickness and the bitterness of the coffee. You taste it there. But then I drank the Chemex, and because it's a cleaner, it's got the filter, the paper filter, it's a cleaner, crisper, you actually taste it over the tongue. Which I would have never in 100 years said that, but that is exactly what just happened. And so you taste the Chemex.
I've never thought of that before, yeah.
It's a cleaner coffee, so it goes over the tongue, you taste it more on the tongue versus the sides.
Interesting. I've never thought of that before.
I never would have put that together unless he hadn't told me.
Oh, good. So, in all of that, 9.5 minute story with our shorter episodes you just told, you still haven't told us the process of making a perfect cup of coffee with a Chemex?
Perfect cup of coffee. So it's 100% based on ratio. We do 45 grams of beans because I make 2 cups, one for me, for the wife. 45 grams of beans, 850 grams of water. But the water plays a huge part, and so does the grind. So I do grind my own beans, got my own grinder, so I grind them fresh every time I make a pot of coffee.
That makes a huge difference.
It really does.
Fresh ground beans.
Yep.
And you just weigh the beans.
Yep.
When you pour them in, and then you grind them, and then.
So I have a digital scale. I weigh out exactly 45 grams of beans, pour them in the grinder, grind them up, grab my little science beaker, aka Chemex, filter on top, pour the ground beans on top, and then I zero out my scale, and I pour exactly 850 grams of water.
And now that gets you like 2 cups, right?
That gives us 2 good sized cups.
That's what you did.
Yeah, actually, both our cups here, I filled both of them up, and then
45 and 850.
45, 850. There's some kind of ratio. I don't remember. It was like 24 to 1 or 25 to 1. There's a certain math formula there, but that seems really high. But somewhere in that area of grams of coffee to grams of water, you can Google it. It's all over Google.
Well, 850 divided by 45 is 63. So.
Wow.
Mathematician, dude. Nobody checked that because I just made up that number completely.
So, I heard this one time. I went in for a job interview, and they were asking, said, well, how are you with math? I said, I'm actually really good at solving math equations quickly. I said, yeah, give me one. I said, what is 4,776 divided by 24.2? I said, 117. They went, that's not even remotely close. I said, no, but it was fast.
And they probably hired you, didn't they?
No.
Okay.
No. But definitely the ratio and the water temperature really does matter. So I have a fancy kettle now. So digital, I'll tell exactly what temperature to set it at. Originally, I was doing, I think, 202 degrees, which is about right. But I found out that if you turn the temperature down a little bit, it takes some of the bitterness out of the coffee, makes it a little more sweet. And so that's what we were started doing that with 185 degrees is what we now put the water at.
You told me that, and because we were having a little trouble with the Chemex being a little sour, not bitter, just a little sour. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh, what are we doing wrong? And you said that turn the temperature down and then grind the beans a little bit coarser, and that's because what'd you say, if it's finer, it pulls more of the coffee into the water and allows more oil to get in there. So if it's coarser, it just gets less, which you would think wouldn't be as good, but it is. And I love strong coffee, like really strong coffee, and I still don't want it to where it gets sour. But
and really, for stronger, just pour less water. I would think.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not that fancy.
I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know.
But that made all the difference. So we dropped the temp to 185 and ground just slightly coarser, and a huge difference.
Really?
And Allie was like, "This is amazing," so because it was already better. But then when we did that, I was like, "Man, something's up." And then you told us that it's perfect. So yeah.
See, I'm not an idiot in all aspects. Just 98% of it.
Yeah.